What if I told you the new DC universe has finally found its Green Lanterns, and their first mission is far more dangerous than anyone expected? Lanterns Episode 1 has arrived, and this isn't just another superhero origin story. The series throws us into a dark mystery where legendary Green Lantern Hal Jordan is forced to work alongside a new recruit, John Stewart. But instead of immediately giving us cosmic battles and colorful superhero action, the episode takes us into something much more grounded, mysterious, and unsettling. A strange case pulls Hal and John into the American heartland, where every clue seems to reveal something bigger hiding beneath the surface. As the investigation continues, the two lanterns begin uncovering secrets that could have consequences far beyond Earth, and by the end of this episode, one shocking moment completely changes the direction of the story. So, what exactly happened? Who is behind this mysterious case? And what does it mean for the future of the DC universe? Let's break down Lanterns Episode 1. The first episode of Lanterns immediately tells us that this is going to be a very different kind of Green Lantern story. Instead of beginning with a huge cosmic battle, the episode builds its mystery through multiple timelines, introducing us to Hal Jordan, John Stewart, and a strange case that eventually connects the two characters. The main story takes place in 2016, while the episode also jumps between different periods to show us important pieces of Hal and John's lives. That structure is one of the episode's biggest clues, because the series isn't simply asking us to discover who committed a murder, it's asking us to understand what happened to Hal Jordan and why John Stewart becomes so important to the investigation. We first get a look at Hal Jordan, played by Kyle Chandler, as an experienced Green Lantern who has already spent years protecting Earth and working throughout the universe. But this isn't the young, optimistic Hal that many comic book fans might expect. He's older, more cynical, and clearly tired of his responsibilities. Hal knows that his time as a Green Lantern is approaching its end, and that makes his relationship with John Stewart especially interesting. John isn't simply another partner. He's the person Hal is supposed to train and eventually replace. The show therefore creates a mentor and successor relationship from the beginning, with Hal carrying the experience while John represents the future. John Stewart's introduction is equally important. He's not immediately presented as a fully confident superhero. Instead, the episode focuses on John as a person, his military background, his discipline, his intelligence, and the psychological experiences that have shaped him. This is a major departure from simply showing him receiving a power ring and becoming a superhero. The series wants us to understand the man before the lantern. That's especially important because John's ability to control fear becomes one of the central ideas surrounding his character. Then the episode shifts into its main mystery. A violent incident in Rushville, Nebraska, creates a situation that appears to involve something far more complicated than an ordinary human crime. Hal and John become involved because there are signs suggesting that an extraterrestrial presence could be connected to what happened. The official premise itself describes the investigation as an attempt to determine whether a fatal shooting was actually an extraterrestrial event. This is where Lanterns starts feeling less like a traditional superhero show and more like a detective thriller. Hal and John aren't simply flying around using their rings. They're questioning people, following clues, examining the environment, and trying to understand what happened. The small-town setting is deliberate. Instead of placing the story in a giant futuristic city, the show puts these cosmic police officers into rural America, creating a strange contrast between the enormous mythology of the Green Lantern Corps and an ordinary Nebraska community. The creators have openly described the concept as essentially True Detective meets Green Lantern, which explains the grounded investigative tone. One of the most interesting characters introduced through the investigation is Sheriff Carrie Kane, played by Kelly MacDonald. She represents the local law enforcement perspective, while Hal and John bring an entirely different level of knowledge to the case. This creates an important tension. The sheriff sees a disturbing crime happening in her community, while the Lanterns know that the evidence could point towards something extraterrestrial. The show uses this conflict to slowly reveal how unusual the situation really is. The Macon family also becomes important to the mystery. William Macon, played by Garrett Dillahunt, is presented as a powerful local figure, while his family and associates become connected to the investigation. Zoe Macon, played by Poorna Jagannathan, is particularly significant because of her interactions with John. Their relationship adds another layer to the story and gives John a personal connection to the people surrounding the case. And this is where one of the episode's hidden storytelling tricks becomes obvious. Almost everyone could be hiding something. The series doesn't give us a simple hero versus villain setup. Instead, characters are introduced with incomplete information, suspicious behavior, and unclear motivations. Even when someone appears helpful, the episode encourages us to question what they actually know. Another major detail is the way the show treats the Green Lantern mythology. The rings are obviously incredibly powerful, but Lanterns doesn't constantly showcase their abilities. This restraint is intentional. The series wants the audience to see the Lanterns as intergalactic law enforcement officers rather than simply superheroes wearing glowing costumes. Their powers are part of the world, but the mystery comes first. That's why the investigation often feels more important than the action. There is also a fascinating contrast between Hal and John. Hal has years of experience, but that experience has made him cynical. John has much less experience, yet he approaches situations with a stronger sense of purpose. Hal often appears to believe that he understands how the universe works, while John is still willing to question everything. Their arguments and conversations, therefore, aren't just funny moments, they establish the central theme of the series. Can the old generation successfully prepare the new generation to take over? Because we know from the beginning that Hal is approaching the end of his career, every scene involving him carries extra weight. His confidence can sometimes feel like arrogance, but underneath it is the knowledge that his time is running out. He is trying to teach John while simultaneously dealing with the possibility that the life he built as a Green Lantern is coming to an end. Then comes the episode's biggest twist. The story eventually jumps forward to 2026, 10 years after the main events we've been watching. John returns to Rushville to investigate what happened, and the audience discovers something horrifying. Hal Jordan is apparently dead. His body is found in the snow, and crucially, his Green Lantern ring is missing. This completely changes how we should interpret the earlier scenes. The episode isn't simply a buddy cop introduction. It has secretly been building toward a mystery surrounding Hal himself. If Hal is dead, then the question becomes, who killed one of the most experienced Green Lanterns on Earth? But there's an even bigger question: why is his ring missing? That detail could be one of the most important clues in the entire episode. A Green Lantern's ring isn't just an ordinary weapon. It is connected to the core and represents the character's identity as a Lantern. Removing it from Hal's body immediately makes the circumstances of his death suspicious. The show wants us to question whether this was really a straightforward murder at all. The timeline itself is another hidden clue. By showing us 2016 and then jumping to 2026, the writers are deliberately withholding 10 years of information. We know that Hal and John worked together in the past, but we don't yet know everything that happened between them. We also don't know what ultimately caused Hal's apparent death. That missing decade could contain some of the biggest revelations of the entire season. And this is why John Stewart suddenly becomes even more important. In 2016, he is Hal's trainee. In 2026, he is investigating Hal's death. The student has effectively become the investigator of his former mentor's final mystery. That gives John's journey an emotional purpose beyond simply becoming the next Green Lantern. The ending also creates a huge question about whether Hal is actually dead. The episode presents his body as lifeless, but because this is a superhero universe involving aliens, advanced technology, and power rings, the audience cannot automatically assume that what we see is the complete truth. The missing ring makes the situation even more suspicious. So, the biggest Easter egg may actually be the title itself, Lanterns. The plural isn't just referring to Hal and John working together. It hints at the passing of the Lantern legacy from one generation to another. Hal represents the veteran, while John represents the future. The first episode establishes that relationship before immediately turning it into a mystery, and that's what makes the premiere so effective. The episode begins by asking us to watch Hal train John, but it ends by making us ask whether John will have to uncover the truth about the man who trained him. The Green Lantern mythology is therefore being used as the foundation for a much larger detective story. By the final shot, we aren't just wondering what happened in Rushville. We're wondering who Hal Jordan really was during those missing years, why his ring disappeared, what the extraterrestrial connection actually means, and whether the people surrounding John and Hal know more than they're admitting. Episode 1 doesn't give us the answers. It gives us the mystery, and that's exactly where the real story begins. And that's our breakdown of Lanterns Episode 1, from Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart's investigation to the shocking ending and all those hidden clues. This episode has already raised some huge questions for the DC Universe. What did you think of the episode? Let me know your theories in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more DC updates. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.